who are new to the Where webinar series, this is a series that we've been doing every month since September. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the land that I am standing on here today, which is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. Welcome to Innovation for a Sustainable Fashion Future. We're excited to have something a little bit different this month for those of you who do regularly attend our monthly series. Our mission at Fashion Takes Action is to advance sustainability in the fashion industry, and we know what it takes to get there: collaboration, innovation, and investment. There are many incredible innovators out there working hard to address the challenges facing the industry, but in order to make advancements as quickly as possible, they need to scale, and brand partners and investors are key to making this happen. Fashion Takes Action is a nonprofit organization, and we're happy to bring you our monthly Wear series at no cost. However, your donations would be greatly appreciated. So in our follow-up email, you will see a link to make a donation. And if you enjoyed today's event, then please consider doing this. So without further ado, I would now like to introduce Alex Zakreski, who is a board member at Fashion Takes Action, along with, and she'll be moderating, a quick panel with our partners for today's event: Carla Mora from Alante Capital and Stacy Fruitman of Style with Substance Ventures. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Kelly, for the introduction, and welcome, everyone. I'm really, really excited to be participating in this session, as improving the sustainability of the fashion industry is something that I'm super passionate about on a personal level. And it's really exciting to see so many innovators commercializing solutions in this space, especially with the investment community starting to recognize the huge market and impact potential of these solutions, given what we're now beginning to understand and continuing to understand about the lack of sustainability of the industry and the need to sort of make change across the value chain. Carla and Stacey have no doubt been leaders in this space, and they recognized early on that this is going to be an exciting segment of the market to invest in. Their funds, Alante Capital and Style with Substance Ventures, respectively, have provided innovators not only with the capital to grow and scale, but also with invaluable advice on how to access customers and tailor their solutions to meet their needs. So I'm going to start off by asking them to briefly introduce themselves before answering the first question, which is, why did you get into investing in this space? And how has it changed over the past number of years since you first started?
Sure, I can go first.
Yeah, we can start with you, Carla.
Okay. Hi, everyone. This is Carla Mora. I'm the founding managing partner of Alante Capital. Alante is a VC fund that I built to address sustainability challenges across the apparel industry, focusing first on production and then moving into a circular approach, looking at anything from resale and rental to recycling technologies. And I started this and got into this because I saw this enormous and exciting opportunity for change in an industry where the leaders of industry seem to be finally ready to do that. And it was very inspiring to me. So I switched gears from my old fund and launched a fund focused on that.
Okay, hi, Stacy Fruitman from Style with Substance. Thank you everyone for being here. I also started Style with Substance in 2015 because I wanted to support innovations in technologies to reduce the environmental impact of the textile apparel industry. I had 10 years of experience in green building and working in technologies, and knew that, well, fashion was my passion industry, and saw so much opportunity. I'd also been looking at, and just almost from an interest point of view, looking at technologies in the early 2010s, like Econel and Genealogica, I think. And you could see that there's just so much opportunity for efficiencies. And that's why I stepped in. I didn't see a lot of investing happening, so it was a bit of a challenge to get that moving, and we'll talk about that, I think, in the next session. But I love being part of it. It's a very collaborative industry. Carla and I work closely together, and we work with Kelly, and there's a lot of change happening right now.
Yeah, so kind of picking up on that, how has the space changed in the past couple of years as you've seen more investors sort of entering the market on this side?
Well, I got started working on Alante about 6 years ago now. And the first year was really spent trying to understand if there was a market opportunity and how many entrepreneurs were addressing challenges that could truly scale and be viable. How many apparel companies were doing meaningful work to move innovation through their supply chains and production, operations. And back then it was few and far between. There were definitely some exciting startups out there. Fashion for Good had just begun. There was an ecosystem bubbling up, but it has matured greatly since then. Now the conversation when I tell people about the fund that we're doing is completely different. At first, everyone thought we were, investing in I don't know, brands. I still get that a lot, which we don't invest in. But now people are starting to see that this is this massive $3 trillion opportunity that is requiring a tremendous amount of investment and has huge opportunity for returns. So we've been seeing a lot of difference lately in our investment. We just made 3 new investments and they were crowded. There was a lot of interest from mainstream investors that aren't focused on apparel, who might not even be focused on sustainability, but just see these technologies as the future of a massive industry. And that is really exciting. And I hope that we continue to see more of that.
I'll add to that. I didn't have an investment background. It was, the opportunity was there. And many of you may know about Mars here in Toronto. And I remember meeting with Catherine Wartzman from the Mars Catalyst Fund, which is an impact investment fund. And she was the first investor back in 2016 or so, to recognize that there was this connection between the fashion industry and clean tech. Because for the most part, when I would speak to investors, their mind, they thought, oh, magazines, fashion shows, what do you mean? So there was about 2 or 3 years between a lot of different players to really communicate to the investment community that there's that whole back-end supply chain and so much inefficiency and so much opportunity. And I think in the past 18 months, there's been, and which somehow coincides with the pandemic, but of new investors or impact investors and other types of investors definitely coming in. I couldn't get into an investment that I really wanted to get into, whereas 4 years ago, they would have been so excited to receive a check from me because the check size were too big and the venture funds were too big. We're still working together, but it is exciting because the more investment, the more brands that get involved, this is where we're going to see the big scaling change that absolutely needs to happen, and we're going to see that environmental and social impact.
Awesome. Thank you both. Those are great perspectives to see. Carla, can you tell us a little bit more about Alante's approach or strategy towards investing?
Sure. So we have a circular thesis. We really look at opportunities, new technologies. They could be deep tech, kind of material science, green chemistries. They could be enterprise software to help designers start to think about designing for zero waste, or thinking about right-sizing production and figuring out how to actually produce enough for the consumers that are ready to buy. We look at models around use. So really the way we kind of think about it is, how can we invest in innovation and production, distribution, use, and waste recovery? And that circular thesis has given us a lot of companies. We have over 250 companies that are startups that fit within that framework, that are raising capital soon, and that are scalable. And so we really kind of narrow in on this thesis because that's where we can add value. We work really closely with apparel companies and brands to understand what their challenges are from a business perspective as well as a sustainability perspective, and help them connect with the startups that make most sense for them to begin to bring to market, to invest in, to scale. And that's really our strategy. So we try to add a lot of value to our pipeline of startups, whether we're investing or not. We make intros to brands that they're looking to meet. We really see this as kind of, a rising tide lifts all boats, and we want to see innovation for sustainability scale, whether we're the ones doing it or others. So that's our strategy.
And I just want to add that, Carl and I met on LinkedIn because we saw that we were kind of doing the same thing, but I'm an earlier stage. I'm more of the angel investment or earlier stage. But when I got into this and I was trying to think about the overall strategy, I'm not looking at the top line per se. I'm looking, if you look at a financial statement, there are so many lines in the cost part, in the expense part. And so that means there's so many different opportunities. And I look at that. So I look at a long-term strategy. I look at reduction of waste, and that has a lot to do with inventory management. Definitely about recyclable technologies. I've been a huge fan of the circular economy since green building days and working with Interface Carpets. If anyone's interested to learn more about circular economy, look at them. They've been doing this for a number of years. But what I just want to say that I love about this industry and the strategy is the collaborative effort, because really, and Carlos mentioned this to you before, really everybody that we speak to, whether they're early stage sustainability or innovation teams within the brands, everybody has the same underlying value, and that is to reduce the environmental and social impact. So we start from there, and it's competitive, but in a kind way. And we all realize that we need to work together. So we're always making introductions. People that you thought would be direct competitors speak to each other. It's an exciting place. So I encourage anyone, even if you're not an investor, but you can maybe advise or somehow be involved with some of these early stage companies. They're amazing people also to work with. Throwing that in.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, thank you so much for that. I know we're running up against time, but I want to squeeze in one more question. We keep talking about scalability. So without, putting you in the position of having to pick your favorite child, so to speak, what are some of the most scalable solutions that you've seen that you're really excited about?
Sure. So one of the companies we invested in, Mango Materials, I'm going to bring that up because I think people don't typically think these material science companies are very scalable, but that we spent a lot of time looking at that one to ensure that it was. And one of the things we look for in material innovation is innovation in feedstock to make it more clean, more circular, the way that it's processed, but then it can ultimately drop into the supply chain and be used just the way polyester is used. And that really makes it able to be scalable in a whole different way. So that's, I'll leave Stacey with the other one.
Well, you're going to meet Eon, and that's proud to be part of the Style with Substance portfolio, because that's about the digitization of this entire industry, which needs to happen. But my example will be Queen of Raw, because there is so much waste in this industry. And if you look at Queen of Raw, they're turning waste into profit and ultimately reducing that waste by starting to track it all. So that's how behind we are. It's not even tracked. So that's where there's so much opportunity.
Awesome, thank you. I wish I could ask you about 15 to 20 more questions, but that's all we have time for. So now we're going to move into the Fireside Chat, and Carla is going to be speaking with Jordan Goldfarb, who's the VP of Advanced Innovation at Lululemon Athletica. And following that, we'll be launching into the demos. So I'm going to see myself out, and then I will be back when the Fireside Chat is over. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
All right, welcome, Jordan. Thank you for being here.
How are you?
I'm doing good. So why don't we have you introduce yourself real quick and tell us a little bit about, what you're doing at Lululemon, what your team is doing, and then we can get started.
Sure. Good morning or afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to be here. Carla, thanks for having me. So VP of Advanced Innovation is sort of a fancy way of saying that my mandate with the teams I work with is really to push the sharp point of Lululemon's linear and lateral trajectory. And for the purposes of the discussion today, I'll just focus on the linear, which is, what Lululemon has been for 2+ decades and will continue to be for the foreseeable future as an outfitter. And we need to both continuously innovate the product in the near term, what the guest expects, our customer, what it can do from a performance standpoint, as well as increasingly so consider the impacts of the production of that product. And so, our job at innovation on the sharp point of that is to totally rethink what our clothes are made of. to shift away, if it's not just us, but an industry really focused on thermoplastics, to something that is drastically decarbonized, and something that is also, I think, breaks through a barrier and to the next S curve of performance, which for us is of equal importance to the impact side. So that's what I'm busy at with the team these days.
Thanks, Jordan. I've had the pleasure to work with Jordan and his team for a while now, and I know how committed they are, and the company is to innovating for sustainability, but I don't think everyone else really knows that much about the work you're doing, so I'm excited to hear more and have you share. Can you tell us a little bit, you're touching on it now, but why does Lululemon care about sustainability? What is the main driver?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's a great question. One, I mean, Lululemon is a collection of human beings at the end of the day, and I think it's becoming impossible to ignore the sort of environmental crisis that we all find ourselves in, as well as just the opportunities to use sustainability as an innovation driver, right? I mean, many folks at conferences like this talk about that, but it's worth saying again, is that taking a stance on, whether you subscribe to the road to zero or various other frameworks out there, that it applies a really powerful constraint to folks like me and the teams who are trying to redesign the status quo. And so for us, we care about sustainability, one, because we have a responsibility to our guests, our broader communities, and ultimately the planet as a stakeholder to do significantly better than we are now and that we have done. But what's so exciting for me is that as we go deeper into sustainable technologies, they're opening up the opportunity to a new S curve of function. And I think the two, radical functionality and decarbonization, are becoming more and more synonymous with one another.
Awesome. And that makes me very excited as an investor in this space. And I hope it gets all the rest of you in this room today excited about all the opportunities innovators we're going to hear from soon. So how do you approach this urgency around sustainability? I mean, you just mentioned that as a human being, we're all concerned about sustainability at this point. So as a company, how are you guys looking at your sustainability commitments, maybe
Sure.
revising them, thinking about the timeline, et cetera?
Yeah, it's a great question. So last year we put out our what we called our impact agenda. It's a public report, you can go look at it, where we laid out our environmental commitments through this decade. Like many companies, and you think of just the events globally the last year or two, it's incredible how much things can shift, where the baseline you've set all of a sudden feels just like vanilla. So what's interesting for me is that there will come a time inevitably where we're going to have to look at our impact agenda and say, if we want to maintain with the pack and even potentially a leadership position, we're going to have to get continuously aggressive at this. And again, I think that's quite exciting. But what we're doing, as we look at throughout our value chain, and I use a simple analogy that someone gave me one day of the bathtub, right? I mean, if your bathtub is overflowing, most importantly, you need to turn off the tap. And I equate that to basically what we're doing upstream with just material substitution at the beginning of the pipe. But you also have to mop the floor. And as you spoke about briefly with Stacy, that's where interesting recycling technologies, this notion of circularity comes in. From where I sit as an innovator, I actually hope one day where circularity becomes a moot point, because we've substituted enough upstream away from the thermoplastics technical cycle into the ecological cycle, where now, what your clothes are made of, what end of life looks like, becomes really up to the guest, and all roads are okay from an environmental standpoint, at least as much as creating anything in the world can be okay. So that's what we're doing. We've launched what we call the re-commerce program. So our teams in sustainability and retail are starting to think about how do we extend the life of our products. And then you have like weirdos like me and the R&D team upstream who are looking at all kinds of fascinating synthetic biology to accelerate the curve to the next form of materials.
Well, it's very clear that your team and others within Lululemon are really focused on innovation, and that you're not afraid to work with early stage startups to do this. And that's not easy, especially as a large company. I think that it could be really beneficial to just share, how do you engage with startups, and is investment always a part of it? Are there other ways? How do you guys do it?
Yeah, and hello, startups out there today. I'm excited for the next portion of the agenda. So that, working with startups is a key tactic that me and the team leverage. We don't pretend to, nor do we want to bring all the technical expertise or intellectual property in-house. So more and more going early, upstream to one, keep pace of innovation, because while Lululemon is not big compared to some, we're big compared to many firms, and naturally, as happens with all firms, the rate of R&D slows down as you get larger, unfortunately. So leveraging the startup community is critical. We like to say we're a strategic investor. So we are not, we don't do corporate venture capital in the traditional sense that some do, at least not yet. But what we have done and will continue to do is act as both a commercial partner early on for startups. So, and I thought it was well said at the beginning. It's like, what can't happen for our collective mission to actually be successful is for brands just to say, this is very nice, come to me in 10 years when you're scalable, right? Or where you can hit my FOB for the next season. It's like, you need to be pulling upstream and take some risks, knowing that it's a portfolio approach, and some of that portfolio will inevitably fail, and that's okay. So we will engage as R&D team to startup directly, to help fund and progress research in this space. What we bring is a large amount of technical and value chain related expertise in how to make textiles all the way through into finished products that we think the customer is going to love. What we don't always have is the new technology expertise that is allowing us to substitute away from PET-based clothes and thermoplastics. And so often those are the types of startups, at least in my realm, we look for. We will consider an equity investor in Carla at different stages of the life cycle where it makes sense. And actually it's an avenue that we're excited to look more at going forward. But at the end of the day, what we intend to be most of the time is a really important customer to the startup once we're able to build the technology and leverage it in a wide way.
That's great. It's really important. As an investor in this space, we see that the more these brands and apparel companies start to commit with letters of intent or offtake agreements with these early innovations, the more capital is unlocked, other traditional VC capital that can come in and allow you all to just be that customer instead of just the investor. Though I do see that investing into these startups is also a very powerful way to show the industry that you're serious about investing for innovation. So it's nice to hear kind of you guys take this dual approach and it's not one way or the other. How do you think about exclusivity for these technologies?
Yeah, good question. I knew you were going to ask this one. The exclusivity is interesting, right? How I approach it is, at the end of the day, this, Lululemon is a commercial enterprise, right? Which I think everyone understands. And in exchange for the types of risks that I believe our company, gives me and the team license to take, we have to create and ensure that there's business value given back in exchange for taking those risks upstream. But I also think that there are many ways to do that. Sorry, there are my dogs in the background. There's exclusivity. I think what equally is powerful, back to the equity investment, is ownership, and sharing in the mutually beneficial outcome. At the end of the day, like technology startups that I'm investing in this space, I want at some point our competitors to be able to leverage them, of course, because otherwise, one, it helps with the economics for Lululemon as well as everyone else. But more importantly, let's not take our eye off the mission here, right? And outside of just the business interests, we need to change an entire industry. So while in some form we look at exclusivity for a period of time of the core R&D stages, more often than not, actually, we would like to take a shared benefit approach, an equity approach, once the agreed upon milestones are met. And that's kind of how we're shifting our portfolio there.
We recently saw the news about your consortium approach for the Milo technology. So I think this is a great opportunity to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and we are super excited to be able to be a part of the Bolt Threads and Milo consortium. I mean, there's other amazing brands in there, Adidas, et cetera. And yeah, Milo is an exciting material for us. As some of you might imagine, we don't use a ton of leather as Lululemon. It's not it's not one of our highest volume materials, but we do use it. We'll continue to leverage Milo in our accessories business and trims and other places as new product categories come out. The interesting opportunity for us is we wanted to learn, right? We wanted to learn two things. One, how does the consortium model work? Carla, as you touched on, what are the different structures to engage in this type of work? And I actually think a consortium where you have cross-industry partnership is an excellent way to go. And I think we need more of those. But secondly, like really to understand what I would call that generation 3 biofabricated materials section of bio, right, which is a big topic. Milo and really mycelium leather derivatives being that type of technology was good for us to understand the readiness, and in some cases the lack of readiness of just where those value chains are actually at. And so as I turn my attention to biofabricated materials for silks and other materials to replace not our core fabrics of nylon polyester, Milo is only going to continue to help us to learn how to be better at that.
We only have a few minutes, and I always love to ask this question to all the brands that I work with is, what are you looking for? There are a lot of innovators out there in the audience right now who are, experts at creating and bringing to life new technologies. So if there was a technology that you wish existed that you still haven't seen, what would it be?
Well, yeah. I mean, there are lots. One, and there are some, but there's no question that nylon, both 6.6 and 6, is a fascinating material. It's such a beautiful material in how it's comprised in so many ways, as the scientists in here will inevitably be able to agree. But I also think it's tricky. And now on our road to replace nylon, there's some challenges. There's some near-term challenges on the recycling of it. And although there's steps being made, I'd love to see more critical mass on how to effectively recycle nylon. But then secondly, I'm a big believer, and I think we all are, as to the bullishness of synthetic biology and specifically protein sequences that can contribute to the future of textiles. And while there's still a long way to go in, the what I would call the artificial or the natural or GMO silks space, I am looking for more and more critical mass in how we, not just design the protein sequences, but how we can at scale be able to, either with AI or other computer models, test, what are going to be the best shots on goal or sequences for us before we actually have to go and scale up, go through the fermentation, because that's one of the really, really challenging bottlenecks right now to that form of technology, but it will be solved, and so I would say, like, anyone out there who are working on, what we would call biofabricated materials or biofabricated precursors. Doesn't have to be protein. It could be other forms of feedstock. We're super interested. And then lastly, as a plug on the feedstock standpoint, I think that's another key piece to getting the LCA and the impact where we need to. And specifically, it's like, I'm very interested on where we go beyond industrial sugars. How can we get our enzymes and our bacteria to eat things that are infinitely renewable? And if anyone has, ideas, I'd love to have a conversation.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jordan. It was a pleasure to be here today with you, and let's look forward to the startups.
Yeah, likewise. I look forward to hearing the pitches. Thank you so much, Carla. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Carla and Jordan. Such an interesting conversation and really great insight into sort of where Lululemon and some of the, innovative brands in this space are really looking for more innovation and kind of approaching the startup partnership aspect as well, which is great. So we're now going to move into the startup demos from our selected companies. Just want to have a quick note on sort of the run of show and rules of engagement for this portion. So each startup will have 7 minutes to present, which will then be followed by 3 minutes of Q&A from the audience. So please submit your questions for the startups as they're presenting into the Q&A function of the Zoom. and we'll be sort of collecting them and collating them as they come in. And then when we open up the question and answer portion, we'll then feed them directly to the startup so that they can answer as many of them as possible. If we don't get to your question, I'm sorry, and hopefully we can connect you to the startup so that you can learn more about them anyways. So now without further ado, we're going to start with Eon. So I will ask Natasha to come on and share her screen and her video.
Hi, I think you can hear me. It says I can't unlock my video because the host has stopped it.
We can hear you.
Okay. Should I start my video or just the screen share?
Yeah. Let's do the screen share, and then hopefully we can sort out the video in the background.
Okay, great. All right. Well, you can't see me, but I'm Natasha, and I'm founder and CEO of Eon, and it's really exciting. Oh, start my video. Okay, great. Thank you, host. Hi. Hello, everyone. It's really nice to be here, and it's wonderful to see familiar faces. I'm Natasha. I'm founder and CEO of Eon, and Eon is industry's network for connected products. We are bringing products online and creating the digital foundation for circular commerce. As we know, twice before, information technology has radically reshaped competition and strategy in retail. And we are at an incredibly exciting time in fashion and retail right now, which is the third wave. The third wave is being defined by technology becoming part of the physical product, and how that unlocks big data, new business models, new systems and services that are essential to circular commerce. As industry's network for connected products, we digitize each and every physical product. We create a digital twin of that product, and we connect that product across its life cycle to new applications, to customers, to new business models and services. We essentially give every product a voice. We power product digitization for some of industry's largest brands and retailers today, and a lot of our clients are moving toward a portfolio-wide strategy. So this is no longer kind of a capsule collection philosophy, which I think has really defined sustainable initiatives, but every single product within a brand's portfolio coming online with a digital ID. So why are brands doing this? By digitizing products, brands are able to connect directly to their customers through each product. They're able to meet new consumer demands, and they're able to monetize products through second and third lives. We are on the threshold of a digital identity revolution across all industry types. And what we're seeing from the implementation is that brands are able to profit from new business models. They can increase profitability by as much as 65% through resale alone with digital ID. They're gaining customers and increasing competitive advantage and accessing really exciting business intelligence about products post-sale. So what is the shift, right? I'll go very briefly through this, but today we ID products from point of production to point of sale, and we remove the ID. Products aren't identified beyond point of sale. Now with Eon, products are connected across their life cycle, and brands can be associated to the ongoing value of that product. Digital ID is quickly becoming a new normal. And in addition to sort of the item level ID, the data is now in the cloud, so it can be exchanged and that product can communicate. So brands are able to almost nearly double the profit per product. So we are able to move fashion away from a volume-based business and increase the item level profitability, reducing the business model reliance on the production of new products. And I'll show you today a little bit of how those different portions come to life. A digital ID, just for those of you who are unfamiliar, is a connected product. So that product could be connected with an RFID code, a QR code, an NFC chip, and each product essentially is brought online within the Eon product cloud and network with a digital birth certificate and passport. Through that ID, brands are able to connect directly with their customers. That customer can scan the product. Net-a-Porter is stewarding these products back through resale. They're giving their customers immersive experiences. They're sharing care, resale, recycle instructions, and holding on to the relationship with their customers. On the back end, they're also able to ID and authenticate that product through their own channels for re-commerce. So they can actually have the second, third, fourth revenue from that product, as well as the data and the customer insights. Now, what Eon's Product Cloud platform does is we bring enterprise into the age of networks. So today, product data is very siloed, right? Brands have it in an Excel or a PLM or some application. We bring that data into the cloud and we structure that data and we connect it to different partners. So now it's possible for brands to have a connected product where they can share that data with different resale, re-commerce partners, different online search engines, and essentially capture value from that data as well as from that physical product. We are uniquely able to do this because we are industry's only platform that has solved for end-to-end connectivity with industry's circular ID protocol and with a pre-integrated partner network on the platform. And we are also the only platform, which is incredibly meaningful to our team, which has really solved for consumer and policy demands related to sustainability and to enable circular processes like recycling, leveraging the digital ID. So our business model is that we actually monetize the dual-sided platform ecosystem. So brands pay to create the ID on the Eon Product Cloud. We are a software as a service solution. And then basically we enable brands to share that data, and we monetize also the access of that data and enable brands to capture value from those transactions as well. So where we've been and where we're going, we have a scalable SaaS software solution today. Our platform ecosystem is expanding. We have some of the largest resale, recycle data partners on the product cloud today. And our next phase is further building out that ecosystem of brands and partners and how they're able to share and exchange data for circular business models.
1 minute remaining.
Great, thank you. So really our goals as a company, we are at this kind of inflection point right now where we're seeing the impact of connected products within the hands of customers. We're seeing how powerful and impactful it is for brands who are digitizing. It enables them to connect with their customers, and it is going to unlock and fundamentally change how customers connect with their products, how they buy products, how they sell products, and how they use them. And so all of these components really build a more powerful and circular business model through the increased utilization of products, through the circular life cycle of these products, and the data connection across the product's life cycle. So we would love to hear from partners related to product digitization who are interested to digitize products, and also who are interested in strategic investment within Eon. And our contact details are below. And thank you so much. That's us.
Awesome. Thank you, Natasha. Right on time. So we've had one question come through from the audience already. And just a reminder to anybody in the audience, feel free to continue to submit questions. But the first one was, with Eon, how much of the data comes from consumer action and how much can be automated?
Yeah, so basically there's, on the digital passport, there's different ways to input data. There is one, the digital ID is initially created by the brand. So the brand is sort of the generator of the ID. Now the customer interacts with the ID, right? So when they scan the product, they are able to unlock services, they are able to directly resell through the brands, right? There's a whole experience in which they can do. And just like with a website, we have visibility into the actions that the users take from those connected products. Now, when a brand operationalizes and scales resale, they use the Eon Product Cloud to also access visibility, for example, between a VF Corp and a Trove. They would be able to exchange that product data and ID those products, and then Trove would be adding and enriching the product's digital identity. So it works both business to consumer and B2B.
Okay, awesome. I think that you already answered one of the other questions, which was around how do consumers know they're buying trackable garments. So let's go to the final one that we have time for, which is, Is Eon considering blockchain technology or NFTs or some kind of securitized token mechanism as part of a future ownership model for clothing?
Yeah, that's a great question. We actually, like, for some of our projects right now on the luxury side, we are partnering with like an NFT provider. A lot of the brands don't need that at this stage, nor are they interested in it for various environmental reasons, but it can be added to the product ID, either
Awesome.
through
Yeah,
a proprietary solution or through a third party.
I was going to ask about authentication for luxury clients, so I think you kind of answered that a little bit. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And thanks for providing your contact details, and hopefully people can connect afterwards if they have more questions. So now we are going to move into FitMatch. Evoco, my mistake. So I'm going to call up Jason, and ask him to share the screen. Hi.
Hi, my name is Jason Robinson, and I'm the CEO and founder of Evoco. Evoco is a clean tech innovations company that focuses on plant-based chemistries, materials, and products. And we really are focused on trying to create a natural, more circular element to a wide range of products that we are working on. I think one of the most underestimated impacts on not only global emissions, but pollution and a variety of things is materials. Fashion and footwear take up for 10% of global emissions, of which materials attribute to 40%. I've seen numbers range from 40 to 50% of those emissions. So 4 to 5% of global emissions are attributed just to materials working in fashion and footwear. Another unique thing I always question is, how can a typical pair of running shoes generate 30 pounds of emissions, carbon dioxide emissions, when it actually weighs 2 pounds, right? So if that. So obviously there's a significant amount of pollution and carbon emission coming from the material sector, and Evoco aims to provide a solution for that. So we'd like to talk today about our Fates Eco Foam. This is utilizing plant-based foundational chemistry that is turned into polymers that eventually makes a variety of materials and products like a foam. Our natural circularity method in all of our ethos or our technology development is focused in first starting with a low carbon footprint. So utilizing plants instead of petrochemicals and replacing that as best we can naturally reduces our carbon footprint. The other thing we do is tailor the chemistry and the technology towards performance and application. So if we have enduring performance, meaning the product lasts longer, we are naturally reducing the carbon emitted from making products that are under kind of fast rotational or fast use. So by creating products that work better and work longer, we're actually reducing that carbon emissions or pollution attached to that. On top of that, every technology we make is biodegradable. So the carbon that is from today, made from the sun of today, extracted from the ground of today, is used in products, and that carbon naturally goes back into the environment with minimal or no effect. Really, what we talk about in terms of sustainability, which is first and foremost, is really around carbon emissions. And so at Evoco, we focused on not only reducing our emissions, but ensuring that we have higher bio content or plant-based content in all of our technologies. Today, we have a 300% reduction in emissions. We believe that is actually more like 10 to 15 times reduction on our current technologies, and our new technologies that are coming out are at least half of our current carbon emissions. So we're talking significant carbon emissions relevant to our Fates Eco Foam that replaces polyurethane or EVA type materials. So how do we make money from this, and how do we use this in industry? Well, today we are focused Fates on the footwear industry, but the platform technology or foundational technology really can tailor these products to a variety of different applications. So today we're working on aspects of footwear and moving that into other applications. So for the sake of Lululemon, this technology is being explored for a yoga mat, for example. And what we're seeing is not only the fact that the technology is biodegradable and lower carbon impact, but it's actually outperforming standard mats and materials the same way. And again, this can be applied to a variety of different applications. So today we have our first commercial product, which is the Fates EcoFoam Insole. This is sold to a variety of different customers and is commercialized today. One of the interesting things is that it's 74% minimal, 74% plant-based content. So that allows not only to differentiate against other products in the marketplace that may have 10 or 20%, but we're actually seeing that the impact from the carbon being emitted is actually significantly less than other technologies that are considering themselves green. So it is a very much differentiated product, not only on the sustainability element, but this is a high performance, high quality product that again has enduring performance elements to it. People often ask, what are we doing with this technology? Well, we're selling it today, but we're also applying this to a variety of other applications such as insoles, midsoles, and even an outsole technology. This can also be transcend to things like uppers on footwear, but also the foundational chemistry can be used in other aspects of fashion on the material side. We are looking at a raise today, and we are focused on raising about $5 million for the company. So any of the investors in the audience, we are taking calls, but it's really for about to optimize the technology, but fundamentally really around to invest in sales growth. And I think with our current platform, there's a lot of innovation and product innovation and R&D that will go into this, but we believe that the opportunity is quite diverse for the applications we have in not only footwear, but a variety of different technologies and chemistries and materials and products around the world. Thank you.
1 minute left. Oh, that's the end.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome, thank you. So a couple of questions from the audience. One of them is, do you currently or plan to do any development closer to end customers, i.e. in the US or Canada?
So we are working with a variety of customers around the world, and we are also looking to produce technology around the world. So currently we're making products in China and Vietnam. We're expanding that into Europe and have a plan to do this in the next 2 to 3 years coming up in Canada and the US. But the key thing is we work with a variety of different brands and we're open to utilizing not only the existing technology like the insoles and the midsole technology, but working with investors or even brands on joint development programs that may be tailoring our technology towards a specific application they have in mind.
Awesome, that's very interesting. And the last question that we have time for is, what is the composition of the remaining 26% of the material, and what are the end of life options for those materials?
Well, once the material's reacted, it becomes an inert foam. That's why you can wear it and do yoga on it if you wish to and stuff like that. So it is inert material. So when it does biodegrade, it degrades into CO2, H2O, some organic acids and other compounds that are not bad for the soil, in fact, enrich the soil. So the other 26% is what I call standard chemistry. It's not plant-based. But our new technology is moving above 80%, and in the future, we're going to be close to 100% renewable with some of the new technologies we have. I think one of the things I'll add is that this technology is patented. We have 12 patents in the process and many more coming. So there's a lot of innovation behind this that we can not only utilize a variety of different plants and plant-based technologies, but we can also apply it to a variety of application and performance measurements. So it is an innovative process, and that's why we can tailor it toward these different applications.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, that's all we have time for, but thank you very much for the presentation and the additional details. Now we are going to move to FitMatch, so I will invite Hanif, and there he is. Great, I will see myself out.
Great. So good afternoon. So I'm Hanif Brown. I'm the founder and CEO of FitMatch. Before founding FitMatch, I worked in private equity for a few years where I worked at a firm that had about $6 billion in assets under management that exclusively invested in retail and consumer companies. And what I saw in apparel was that there was a ton of waste. There was a ton of wasted assortment. There's wasted time on the shopper's side. And of course, wasted inventory that ended up in our landfills. 3 years later, after founding FitMatch, we're now at 15 full-time employees. We're post-revenue, and we've raised about $3 million and more in seed funding, and have begun scaling out our B2B SaaS platform, with really large clients. As we look at the apparel industry, obviously it's going through a pivotal change. About 50% of transactions are projected to occur online over the next 4 years, up significantly from where it is today. And last holiday season alone, there were $80 billion worth of returns, and 70% of the reason for a return in apparel is due to fit. So these returns are not only environmental issues, but it causes significant reverse logistics challenges for retailers and inefficiencies for brands. And on the shopper side, the issue is even more pronounced. Fit is almost as important to shoppers, 30% more important than style, as it is for price. And the buy now, pay later industry, as many of us know, Klarna, Affirm, and Afterpay, have created about $100 billion of cumulative enterprise value. And we believe the same thing can be done in the fit space if done correctly. And over the next few slides, I want to show you what FitMatch is, why we're different, and how we're going after the market. So FitMatch is an AI-based recommendation engine where we use algorithms to match shoppers to their ideal products. We remove risk from the apparel buying and selling equation. And how we like to phrase it is we turn fit technology into viable commerce. And why are we different? So if you really look at fit technology, which many of you have seen some of the logos on this page, there is two components. There is how you collect the data from the shopper, the front-end fit tool, virtual try-ons, 3D scans, fit surveys, etc. And then there's what do you do with that data? How do you collect the data? And then how do you match that data up on the back end to create the right scores, the right recommendations? FitMatch is unique in that we are a middleware backend platform. We believe that the value in the ecosystem is on the back end, creating an infrastructure that can agnostically plug in into any of the front end tools that exist on the market, enhancing them, optimizing them, and then presenting brands with an infrastructure that predicts and can recommend scores or the right sizes for fit on the back end. And how we do it is that we have 4 patented technologies where we can do things like what you see on the page, which is take information from 3D tools and use body shape data to recommend the right size on the back end for shoppers. We believe that this is the right way to actually do fit recommendations, as people can have the same 2D measurements but have completely different shapes which throws off their sizes. We've been asked by a couple multi-billion-dollar brands to take this exclusively, and we strongly believe as we move forward, this is the right way and the correct way to actually do fit technology at scale. But there's a real reason why this is now important. A $1 trillion company such as Apple has invested billions of dollars into now making a technology such as LiDAR embedded into the iPhone 12 Pro. And they've communicated publicly their intention to continue investing in LiDAR. So now customers or shoppers with an iPhone can do a scan at home, making the technology extremely ubiquitous. And the retailers and brands that we're talking to are all over this. They know that with a LiDAR scan, they can get data from shoppers that can inform them as to what size they are, what their right match is, and of course, reduce returns over the long term. what we do is we take that data from that phone and then we come up with the replica 3D mapping for that piece of inventory from that brand. The brand can then use our APIs to present shoppers on the front end in their own app, so we white label it, or otherwise with the right score, with the right size, and with the right match at scale. We've also been doing this for brands in fitting rooms, especially after COVID presented an opportunity to repurpose these fitting rooms into tech-enabled, data-driven experiences. Here are a couple of brands that we've been doing this for across the country, and we're actually scaling this nationally now as well.
1 minute remaining.
And of course, brands can use our data insights to predict how to create better clothes over time. The two things that we're most proud of is that we're seeing extreme accuracy across other standalone fit solutions. Just like the buy now, pay later space, we're seeing higher conversions and higher AOVs. And we've been able to show significant reduction in returns over time and a higher net promoter score for the customer experience. We also have this very zero burden integration process through integrations with PLMs, where brands can actually onboard our infrastructure. We can onboard them with very limited resources from the brand and very quickly as well. We're growing our team, we're raising funds, and we're partnering with industry leading retailers and then eventually into the longer tail of the market. With that, I'd love to hear any questions that the audience has.
Awesome, thank you. So the first question we have is, does FitMatch see their data working with Eon's data? For example, how could Eon store fit data that a brand or reseller could use, and how would FitMatch fit into that?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I saw Eon's presentation and, really impressed. I mean, there's so many ways that we could partner together. A big part of our growth strategy is partnerships like Eon in the ecosystem. One of the ways that we believe is down to the SKU level. If every customer, for example, had their match or their fit match profile and can be able to actually link that back to the individual SKU and their shopping experience, whether it's in store or otherwise, and there's a cross connection between what FitMatch is saying their right sizes or their right matches to what that Eon digitized token on the SKU level is, that could be pretty interesting as well. We haven't explored it, but there's a lot of opportunity to do cross projects like that down to the SKU level that we think is really interesting.
Awesome. And I actually have a question just quickly about some of the data. So I know that you kind of spoke about that being sort of part of the long-term vision of the development of the product. Can you talk more about some of the use cases for that data?
Yeah, absolutely. So where we're seeing a lot of brands ask us now is they said, look, we've been leveraging some of the survey data over the few years, but given Apple's investment in LiDAR and other sort of more empirical methods, how can we embed this into our own app, into our own website, into our own customer experience? And so what they want to use the data for is really to reverse engineer things around how they sell the product. So imagine, Alex, you now, instead of getting a generic email, you're getting a personalized email telling you what your matches are, etc. A brand that may have a lot of extra smalls left over at the end of a season can now go into its database and using our APIs can figure out who in that database are perfect fits for that extra small. You can walk into a store and that store manager now knows your matches or your fits before you even say hello. So these are the things that the retailers and the brands are talking about the future and ways that they can leverage different data and APIs to better the shopping experience.
Yeah, the omni-channel potential is actually huge. So that's awesome to hear more about. Okay, we have to move on to the next presentation, but thank you so much. We will now be going over to Returnity. So I will call, I think it's Mike up to the stage. Yes, there he is. You are on mute. How's that?
There we go.
Person?
It's only been 15 months. You think I'd figure this out by now? Okay, let's start in. Thank you so much. So I'm Mike Newman from Returnity. We design and manufacture reusable shipping and delivery packaging, as well as the systems that are required to make them the right choice for our clients. So this is a common streets scene here in New York these days. It's not hard to convince people that packaging has become a real problem. Governments are starting to look at extended product responsibility around packaging. They're dealing with this kind of infrastructure and end-of-life waste management problems. Consumers are pretty fed up with it, and brands are sort of seeing that this needs to be something that they address, which creates a lot of opportunity to think differently about the problem. And just to kind of reinforce how much of a problem it is, in the States alone, we're boxing the Empire State Building every 20 seconds. It's enough cardboard to pave a road a mile wide from New York to LA and back 3 times a year, just the US, 100 billion parcel deliveries globally, and that's going to double in the next 5 years. So it's an enormous amount of waste and a real need to address it. And it's not just the environmental pressure, it's economic pressure too. Cardboard prices are at record highs, still growing, not just because of e-commerce growth, but particularly because of e-commerce growth. And it's been a bit of a shift now. Instead of marketing leaders or sustainability groups engaged on packaging and sustainability, it's really the supply chain leaders themselves, which is clearly a welcome change. So Returnity is addressing this problem with what we call our 3P framework. Whereas most companies in the reusable space tend to lead with packaging and sort of reusability in theory as opposed to reusability in practice, what we found is that brands really need partners to think about the system that the reusable is going to operate in and make sure that it actually is reused. And for us, what that means is this 3P framework. So we first start by working with brands on the process. Literally, how is it getting back? If it's not cost efficient and operationally efficient, it's not scalable. So we have to first make sure there is a process for reaggregation. We then have to make sure that the end consumer is actually following through. What is often seen in this sort of opt-in programs is maybe a 75% return rate on packaging. But what that means is that you're only actually reusing that package 4 times on average, because you send out 100, you get 75 back. You send out 75, you only get 54 back. 4 reuses is actually probably worse for the planet on a reusable because it's a more energy and material intensive package than single use. And so the system really matters. And the only way you scale it is by having an efficient system. Then what we do after we help build that system is make the right bag or box for the client's needs. And so that's, I think that focus is why we're scaling as fast as we are and able to really implement programs for long-term success. So I'm going to talk about 3 of them really quick. One, and where we kind of cut our teeth, is in the circularity world directly. That's the easiest integration model. It's out and back every time. That cost and participation is already there. The good news is that sector is really recovering quickly, and we think we're clearly the market leader there, working with Rent the Runway, now Castle, Her Collective in the UK, and et cetera. The second is what we call internal logistics. So this is a bit of a hidden part of the supply chain, but a really important part of how we're creating circularity for packaging. So today, for companies that are using cardboard to move goods between warehouses and store locations, you can switch that to our reusables with a high degree of efficacy, and we can create the loop that allows for that circularity. Happy Returns and their work with FedEx now will have millions of shipments this year by the end of the year now in these reusable boxes we make for them. And we have a growing list of clients leveraging that circular model we've created. And then finally, we're expanding into direct-to-consumer, but direct-to-consumer needs to be targeted. Trying to replace single-use packaging for regular e-commerce, where you might have a 20 or 30% product return rate, is not going to scale for you. You're trying to get consumers to do a new thing 70 or 80% of the time and return empty packaging. It doesn't work at enough of a rate, and the costs are too high for brands to really do that. So where we focus with companies is on the most circular parts of their e-commerce operations. Refill, subscription, try before you buy, those sorts of initiatives are much better aligned to reusables than what we call your regular e-commerce channels, which are just going to be much harder to switch to reusables today. The good news is that that's creating a really big market for us. So that focus might seem like a weakness. It's actually our strength because we have successful partnerships that are growing. And we basically capture revenue at 3 different phases of the relationship. The first is we help clients first figure out what they're going to do. Then we make them the packaging. We have multiple clients who are on their 3rd, 4th, or even 5th orders over the last few years. So they continue to restock and grow with our products. And then finally, now clients are asking us to help them manage their use in the field. We don't typically get in the middle. We find that's inefficient. So what we try and do is set up clients to run the programs themselves, but they do ask us to help manage in certain circumstances. And that's a part of our growing capabilities. So we're already grown 5 times this year over last year. We've got $10 billion brands in the fold, and it's a really exciting inflection point. So just finally, we've got clients across multiple product segments, certainly apparel, and now in cosmetics, and we're working with Electrolux now as part of their accelerator program, developing reusable packaging for their appliances. We are technically still have a convertible note round open until the end of the month, but really what we're doing is building off of all this growth we're seeing now for an institutional round later this year to support our aggressive growth plan. And I really appreciate this opportunity to talk to you about the business and look forward to your questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. One question from the audience. So what is the sustainability profile of the materials used in Returnity's packaging? And will that change, i.e. improve over time? How many times do you have to reuse a Returnity package for it to be better than cardboard based on carbon and water impact categories?
Yeah, so good question, and multiple components of that. So everything we make is custom, but generally what we use are polyfabrics and plastic corrugate are the main materials depending on the product. We prefer using recycled content. Not every company wants to pay that premium. We actually just finished up phase 1 of a project with Stora Enso, this Finnish forestry product company, to co-develop reusables made out of paper goods. We'll have some announcements on that later this year. So that's going to be part of the portfolio. And we just signed 2 weeks ago a deal with a prominent performance fabric manufacturer to actually use fabric they're landfilling today to make packaging from. So we've got a number of different options that we're bringing to the table. I think that Fashion for Good just released an LCA a couple months ago that reinforced what I've seen every time anyone, including our own internal studies, have shown, which is reusables are going to be better than single use if they're reused enough. Now, enough is a really specific thing depending on the use model. 4 to 10 uses is usually kind of where that threshold starts to play in. But the key is it has to actually be reused. It has to be reused in practice and not in theory. And too often brands and companies will say, here's our reusable, it can use 1,000 times, but it's never going to be used 1,000 times. That's not realistic. So it's more important to say, what is the return rate? What is the actual field usage? And how does that line up with an LCA?
Right. Yeah, that's helpful sort of granular detail. Last question. Do you use incentivization mechanisms, so like incentive schemes like reward points, et cetera, to entice customers to return the packaging? And if not, what's your sort of alternative?
So the short answer is not generally. I think we think of that as too often as brands think of that as the cake. It needs to be the icing. It's not, you're not going to change enough behavior with that. You need to start with circularity. You can tweak the participation with incentives, but you're not going to all of a sudden make it go from a 75% return rate to 100% with incentives. The evidence is really clear, and competitors who have tried that just can't break through. So that's why we start from circularity and move down rather than start with non-circularity and try and throw some incentives at consumers to get behavior change. It's just too hard of a fight, and we don't need to. We can start with better use models.
Makes sense. Okay, thank you so much for your time, Mike. And we're going to move on to the next presentation, and that will be from Tradle, and we're going to have Blythe speaking. So I'll ask him to join. Perfect.
Hi, everyone. First off, thank you for this great opportunity. I've been a big fan of the Wear monthly presentations for a while, so it's a privilege to be here, and I'm honored to be next to so many great businesses. So yeah, my name again is Blythe. I'm the founder of Tradle. We're a Canadian-based two-sided circular marketplace for a community of change makers. And I say that a little bit tongue-in-cheek, as you can see in the background who I'm referring to. And so our overall mission really is to help accelerate this transition from our current linear economic system into a circular one. And studies around the world are showing just how bad we are at circulating materials. And we're consuming 100 billion tons a year, and with only an 8.6% circularity rate. So that refers to agro, food, forestry, all sorts of things. But we're here today to talk about fashion. And Natasha mentioned that we have 180 billion new pieces of clothing every year being made. And this is resulting in one garbage truck of clothes being sent to landfill or incinerated every single second. It's a stat that gets used quite often from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. So we have a production and consumption problem, which the UN has some goals to fix, which we are trying to solve specifically in the baby and toddler clothing marketplace. So we have a circular fulfillment center where quality brands are providing us with clothes, and we give them to parents in the right size in the right season until they're quickly outgrown every couple of months, and then provide them with the next size up, take back the clothes, and keep those in circulation for as long as possible. And happy to say that we won a Circular Economy Innovators Award a couple weeks ago out of a British Columbia accelerator called Foresight. So we're off to a really good start in our fundraising. And yeah, so it's a great market. It's huge in North America, almost $10 billion, and something really to smile about. And the parents that we're working with are just incredible. And it's all about more parenting and less shopping. And it's not to replace hand-me-downs. Hand-me-downs are great. But our current customers are those that may be the first in their community to have kids. And so they don't have that network of people offering to provide them with garbage bags full of gently used clothes. So they really love this idea of supporting local brands, and the convenience of having somebody to take back the clothes when they no longer need them is just providing a lot of really good peace of mind for parents that are already busy and have a lot of stuff on their plate. And so we have a subscription revenue model right now, as well as a great gifting system that we've seen can really leverage the growth through this network effect, where it's not just the parents subscribing, but we have 10, 20 people all contributing instead of purchasing things towards this gift subscription, where if you can see, there'll be a great unboxing experience with Returnity packaging in the bottom right there. We're really happy customers of Returnity, where they can every 3 months open up 12 or 24 new products that have been gently used over and over and over again. So really convenient system on one side. And on the other side, we're working with small and medium-sized brands that have a lot of stuff on their plate as well, just running a business. And now to be even more eco-friendly, they're learning about circularity and returns. And so we're taking that off of their plate with our fulfillment system. And so Natasha also mentioned, brands can make twice as much money through the LTV of their products with a different revenue model. So we're kind of helping brands transition to this clothes as a service model, where they're making more money and having doing more with less, essentially. And one of our customers actually is the CEO of a Victoria-based brand ecologist, and just talking to him about the business model, they don't produce kids' clothes, but he's like, it's a no-brainer. I can make more money without having to worry about the reverse logistics and circularity. It just makes sense. So, and yeah, there are lots of other players in the specifically fashion industry providing services to help brands transition. Everything started with peer-to-peer marketplaces, and it's moving towards brands internalizing this circular system, and we're kind of coming along saying, hey, we have a clothing library, provide us with your products and we'll circulate things for you. So super convenient for parents, but also for small brands that have a lot on the go. And yeah, so the digitization of products is coming strong. Been watching this for a little while. It's exciting to be here next to Eon talking about it. And so we really want to leverage this new technology. We're going to be seeing, it's going to be ubiquitous, kind of like Patagonia seeing used products next to new products. So online and offline. And so we're planning to have, and we're trying right now, these affiliate fulfillment nodes so that products aren't being shipped, across the country, but within the local communities that they're currently in. And so we have a great team that's, I'm super proud of. I've been working in two-sided marketplaces for the last 6 years in startups, so familiar there. Giselle and Haley have been great, and we just brought on Jamie Stone as a strategic advisor. He's 20 years in the industry. So yeah, incredible support to take it to the next level. So we're, as I said, just starting our seed round.
1 minute left.
Fundraising, where we're hoping to grow, slowly but surely, with a third of that going towards inventory, some key hires, as well as putting some money towards tech and R&D to help with these micro fulfillment centers. And yeah, our biggest bottleneck right now is inventory supply to help with this growth. And so looking for investors and or brand partners to help solve this this problem with some creative ideas.
Awesome, thank you. A quick question from myself actually is around sort of the potential for the platform beyond the current sort of market it's serving. Can you talk a little bit about that and sort of the long-term vision of the company in that regard?
Yeah, so I'm super passionate about kids' clothes, and working with new parents is the best. But this tracking of products doesn't just apply to clothing. And so a lot of parents also use treadles and strollers and just other products for a very short period of time. And so there is an easy transition to use this digital technology to track, other durable goods over time. So into furniture, all sorts of things, sporting goods, and beyond just the parent market as well. So ideally, in the future, everything comes with some sort of ID and can be used and resold and recirculated.
Awesome. Yeah, that sort of interaction between the physical and the digital is always very exciting from an investment and from a commercialization perspective. A question from the audience: don't children's clothes get spoiled easily?
Yes, thank you. And I keep forgetting to mention this in part of my pitch, but we have a shit happens guarantee where, it does happen. And the last thing parents need to worry about is what to do with these clothes. So we take them back anyways, but what we've been seeing, and we've been circulating clothes for 18 months now, very few actually come back stained irreparably. And I think that's because we're dealing with such high quality clothes. So it's an exciting time, I think, because we're working with high quality brands that can make more money from their product over time, which is going to incentivize people to build higher quality products with better materials that last longer and longer and longer, are easily washable. So we're kind of transitioning away from, I think, fast fashion, where the products won't last very long, but can move and be circulated over and over again, along with the materials.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much. That's all we have time for. But great presentation, and looking forward to see what comes next for you guys. Now we're going to move to our last demo, which is from Unspun. So I will call Walden up to the stage. Hi.
Hello. Let me share my screen. Can I see?
Yeah.
Cool. It's glad to be here. Good to be seeing so many familiar faces. We are Unspun. My name is Walden. What we do is essentially changing how fashion supply chain works. Our mission is to reduce global human carbon footprint by 1% by automating a big part of the fashion supply chain, by essentially creating an on-demand, onshore, intentional supply chain. Hidif already talked a little bit about the sizing issues and the return issues. So I'm gonna not going to repeat what he mentioned. It's a massive issue, and that's our entry point into solving the end consumer pain point. But on the industry level, what we're also seeing is still a very manual labor process, where the sewing, the assembly process, the cut and sew process is very manual labor intensive, and that's why we have to be producing in places where labor cost is competitive, producing in Bangladesh, Ethiopia. And that results in a fashion supply chain that's quite convoluted, fragmented, and you typically have to plan 12, 15, sometimes even 18 months ahead of time before products are available in retail and fashion e-commerce. When you have to forecast that far into the future, you inevitably make mistakes. Currently, around 15% of all garments that are created are not sold or consumed. And so it results in a waste issue and debt stock issue for a lot of the fashion companies. And so what we set out to do is to essentially make on-demand a compelling consumer experience, starting with a great product and with the technology we've been working on in the past few years, the ability to produce onshore and produce within minutes. And everything we create is zero inventory. There's no working capital tied to inventory, and we never throw away garments into landfill or have to incinerate them. So starting with the consumer, we have a process of customizing jeans. Jeans is the first product to market because we've heard a lot of pain points from end consumers saying, hey, it's really hard to find bottoms, especially denim jeans. So we have 4 core styles, and we also develop styles in collaboration with brands and the designers. So essentially 4 core styles, and on top of that, customers can even choose waist height, hem length, stitch color, fabric. How we make sure everything is perfect fit is we have a scanning process that takes 10 seconds, use the inward-facing camera on iPhones, and we handle everything on the back end. We have a process of visualizing the garments in the virtual world before they get produced in the physical real world to make sure that it's matching the customer expectation. Currently, we are at about 92% customers happy rate. Essentially, when they receive the pair of jeans, 92% of customers say, this is the perfect fit I've been looking for. And then 8%, we might have to do a small alteration, but this is, I think, within custom or online fashion, it's kind of unheard of. Yeah, and obviously everything is zero inventory. It's created on demand. We are very, very big on collaboration. The publicly announced partner that we have is a brand called Weekday under the H&M umbrella. We have a whole scan to custom jeans set up with their flagship store in Stockholm. And for the remaining half of the year, we'll have one collaboration that's coming out every quarter. So we have a very strong pipeline of custom on demand side of things, working with more established brands. We're also very big on collaboration with innovators. So Natasha from Eon, we collaborate with them within the framework of Ella MacArthur Foundation Jeans Redesign Program. We also work with a smaller startup in Belgium, Resortex, and a consortium of industry players. Collaboration is really, really key for us, but we're quite agnostic as to the scale of the companies that we collaborate with. Another part that we're really known for within the industry is this additive manufacturing 3D weaving process. Essentially, we've been working on this technology to take yarns and 3-dimensionally build the garment from the ground up without the need to do a cut and sew process. So from a material standpoint, we can get to quite close to a zero waste process. And obviously, because it's onshore, you create a pull system. And as we talk about circularity and using recycled materials, this can be, we can use the materials within the end markets themselves because we automate a big part of the process. And then about half a year ago, we created the world's first 3D woven pants, integrating the scan, custom pattern generation, and the 3D weaving side of things. So truly now we can bring that manufacturing onshore, realize the vision of on-demand And the product itself, it's a better product structurally because there's no inseam, outseam, it's seamless. And then it can enhance the functionality of the garment because when you're creating garment from a two-dimensional piece of fabric, it's typically location agnostic. You don't know where the fabric is going to end up on the knee versus the crotch. With this process, you can use different materials, different yarns, different structure to really enhance the functionality of the garment.
1 minute remaining.
Great, thank you. And we've done life cycle assessment because that's core to our mission. Currently, if you shop with our jeans or our partner jeans, you save roughly about 24% carbon compared to a Levi's 501. When we turn on manufacturing onshore, that would be closer to about 49% of carbon emissions. Really great to be here. We're currently in the midst of closing a round. Also happy to be working with innovators and brands to scale innovation. Thank you so much.
Walden, very interesting. I certainly need a pair of these jeans. That's what this presentation has taught me. But the first question that we have from the audience is, can you make these jeans with recycled cotton yet?
Yeah, so on the 3D weaving side, we have tested with recycled cotton, recycle blend with organic cotton, cottonized hemp. So yeah, from the 3D weaving side, definitely. On the sort of software on demand side, we have now around 90% of our collection has recycled cotton in it. Yeah, the other one is just organic cotton.
And then another sort of question, because I know the denim industry gets a lot of attention and a lot of slack, some of it deserved probably for the unsustainability of a lot of the processes and water utilization and stuff like that. I'm curious, beyond sort of like the fabric waste and recycling of textiles and materials, like how do you see your solution kind of integrating into that broader conversation around the sustainability of denim?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of the technologies that companies and brands are talking about with laser spraying or ozone washing, not using PP, like a highly toxic chemical in the process, or using bleach in the process, we think of them as more table stakes. They are available, they are scaled. Generally, when you visit denim factories, they are lying in the corner. We just have the flexibility to be able to experiment with really quickly because our design cycle is like one at a time, and be able to experiment more with the innovations. But yeah, I'll call out Genealogia, Tonello, like those companies are highly scaled and commercially viable.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think that's all we have time for, unfortunately. Oh, sorry, one more question. How long does it take to 3D print one pair of jeans? That's a good one.
Yeah, so on the 3D weaving side, it takes about 8 minutes to complete the pair of jeans. We have about a 5-minute manual step of stitching on the back pocket and the front zip. Yeah, end to end about 13 minutes or so.
Wow. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Walden, and to everybody else who presented today, Carla and Stacey for joining us, and FTA for hosting, of course. This brings us to the end of Innovation for a Sustainable Fashion Future. I hope you all enjoyed the conversation, and we'll naturally be creating opportunities for you to connect directly to some of the startups that presented and kind of continue those conversations there. For those of you who opted to join our closed door breakout session starting at 2:45, you're going to need to leave this webinar and join using the other meeting link that we will have just sent you. And yeah, we will see you there in 15 minutes. Otherwise, thank you everybody for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.